I was actually working full time, but also looking after my father full time, who was suffering from severe depression, addiction, alcoholism. He ended up taking his own life in 2017, but he didn't think this was going to go this way. How does this go to going to freelancing? Come on. And at the time when I was looking after him towards later life, I also was basically on the lookout to do something myself. And then after his passing, I was very keen to sort of honour him and wanted to set a business up that looked after people's data and yeah, I couldn't do what he did in his career because I wasn't technically minded like he was. But so to answer your question, yeah, it's a bit of a legacy to my father. Yeah, first 12 months. Well, it's a bit like Trotter's Independent Traders, if I'm being completely honest. Back then, you wouldn't recognise CSRB, now full-fledged data privacy and GDPR consultancy. Back then, I would sell my gran if she wandered past at the time. No, you might laugh, but actually, I was selling penguin recycling bins. I was also coming and picking up people's confidential documents for secure shredding, the lovely certificate of destruction. I was also providing consultancy around recycling and waste management at the time. And we could also actually empty your bins if you're a commercial organisation as well. So you can see, bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, whilst I was getting the money going, I knew in 2017, and without going too political too early, I was keeping a close eye from the confidential document management side of the business on something called GDPR, which was doing the rounds before it actually came law in 2018. But of course, we all know what happened in 2016. There was a slight referendum, and that meant we were leaving the EU. So whatever your thoughts may or may not be on that, we'd spent 6 years collaborating with our EU partners on a set of regulations that would make processing data easier between all of us. And then suddenly we were leaving the club and going our own complicated way. So I thought, right, let's do some training courses. So in 2017, also a bit of a sales guy, a bit of a whiff of I could be unique, bespoke, all those wonderful things, certifiable as well, and go do that. And so I did a load of training courses in how to become a data privacy practitioner. Loved going back to school in that first year, learned about that, and then actually not only did I get qualified in both the EU and UK versions of the GDPR, I also then went further, went back to school again, paid more money to a training company, and became certified as a data protection officer as well. So I was ready to go in year two to go and conquer the world of its GDPR-ness. Yeah, I suppose what passion originally for it, I could see through the confidential document management, believe it or not. I mean, if you see that at the end of the day, it was basically looked like shredded documents, right? But I looked at the reason why those documents had to be shredded. And I can understand that we all have personal data. I'd gone through a very personal data-led experience looking after my dad for the previous 10 years. Lots of sensitive health data, lots of going to rehab with him, lots of going into sort of some quite environments that you don't necessarily, we all go through things as family members, but we don't necessarily, we see them on Casualty or on the telly or something, and you think, oh, that will never be us. And then it is. And then you saw some processes there, and I got chatting, sadly, about, paperwork trails and how these things work. And I just thought there was, I'm not naming any names, but there was rooms for improvement, even in amongst our most esteemed of health provision services. And I suddenly thought, oh, okay, this coupled with my knowledge of the confidential document management industry, I think there's definitely something here. And also, and I'm going to alienate half of my black book of contacts for the next thing, is that there's loads of people that are building your website. There's loads of people that might want to be your accountant, for example. But you don't bump into too many people that can make you GDPR or data privacy compliant. And there's not too many that do it, hopefully with a smile on their face and make it engaging at the same time. So there was my niche. So run with it. It absolutely is completely important for all my jesting around at times. It goes back to fundamentals for me. My morals as a person, and I have to thank both my parents and schooling and friends and wider business connections for helping me keep on that track, is along the lines of, believe it or not, and I'm not just setting this up, but it is along, if you go to the data processing principles of GDPR, there is something fairness. Yeah, I'd like to think I'm fair with people, transparent and trust. So they're three sort of big things that I sort of set myself in my business by. If you can trust people, you can generally get on with them. If you're transparent with people up front, they'll generally come with you on the journey. If you're not, they tend to think there's something a bit wrong, and they're probably right. And also, at the same time, I think you have to, I'd chuck another one in, you have to make things engaging and relevant to people as well. Because data privacy is a rather dry subject. It's like a John Major spitting image puppet from the 1990s. It's grey, boring, but every now and then it has the odd little affair with your business. And you need to be able to, overcome that and move on and grow your business. So yeah, I suppose it was those sort of values really that sort of made me want to go into it. And if you're a freelancer as well, you've got to be, your reputation is everything. So as soon as that falls down, and we all know this from networking and other things, people talk about getting fined by regulators or too much. Some of my fellow practitioners sit in little groups on social media going, you're going to get fined and whatever else like that. God, I'd rather, than do that. It's not about getting fined. It's about the reputation, and that will cost you far more than any fine from a regulator. I think sometimes it's about flipping the service or product around, maybe more so with the service. So, for example, I mentioned a lot of fellow practitioners and how they go and seek business. I'm not criticizing, we all have our different ways of doing things. You can go two routes with compliance. You can go out there and try and seek business by telling people what they're doing wrong and scaring them half to death, and then hoping that gets you in order. I choose not to take that route. You can go down the other route of saying, well, if you embrace this, bring it into your culture, into your vision, and actually run with it. And by the way, if you break it down very simply into three onboarding structures in your business, we all want to onboard clients. We all want to onboard good employees into our business, and we all want to work with decent suppliers, trusted partners. So you can use GDPR and data privacy to actually add value to your business, because if you're going to invest in me and compliance, there's probably more exciting things to redeem myself with the web development community. You could go and get a shiny website, for example, or go and sit with a really nice accountant in a boardroom and talk about Zero and QuickBooks if you want to, or whatever you want to do. So you can do that, or you can look at your, say, three onboarding structures and actually go, how can I get more out of my marketing through using data privacy techniques to do that? And I know my way around the legislation, what works, what doesn't. Not quite Jimmy Carr's accountant. Other accountants are available, but I can give you those quick wins where you're compliant and still in line with both our morals. Yeah, well, if I'm being ruthlessly honest, the first 5 years, I would, I always say that it's we're 8 years in, but I always say that it's the last 3 years where the business has really kicked on. And that's down to me. We've all had should we say, other factors that have been going on in the early 20s, that may or may not have come around. But I think a lot of the time, I do get sort of distracted, or I did get distracted by shiny things. I'm not materialistic, so I'm not into cars, golf courses, that type of thing. But if there's I'm an entrepreneur, so if I see another idea, so I set a second business up, and then spent time focusing on that, and that took me away from CSRB. So now I know this is the business that I need to focus on. I've been fully, submerged, or I should say, just about keeping afloat in it in the last 3 years. And that's brilliant, because that's what I should have done. So I think, to answer your question, being quite reflective, if I could go back and do those 5 years of selling recycling bins to schools and all that good stuff, it was all good stuff and it was fun, and I got invited into some fantastic places to go and have meetings, stadiums, concert halls, all these things. Met some great people, but I was selling somebody else's product. I wasn't using my own expertise. Whereas in the last 3 years, people are buying me and they're getting hopefully my expertise, but they're also getting hopefully a bit of humor, a bit of charisma, and a bit of enjoyment along the way as well. Yeah. Yeah, no, good God. I always said when I set CSRB up, was one thing I have stuck to. I never wanted to employ someone. Yeah, I literally wanted it to be me and working with good people that I've built in my network. So and I have to thank networking for that. It's been an absolute godsend in the last 8 years. Don't get me wrong, I've met some absolute lunatics at the same time, but I've met some really fantastic people as well. And if any of the fantastic people are listening, or or watching, you're fantastic. And if any of the lunatics, anyway, we'll leave that. But moving on. See, I've gone off on a tangent now, and I've almost forgotten what the question was. What was the question? Working with partners. Yeah, so I suddenly realised that after a while, the to grow the business to where I need to get it to. I said I'm not materialistic, but I work with business. I've always had. Let's talk about accountability partners first of all. Actually, I realised very early on that I had to invest, and I saw it as an investment, not a cost, even though I hadn't got the money. So I did have to borrow. But I invested in a business coach from day one. So literally, I set the business up, and I'm still working with that same business coach 8 years later, who is now a family friend and seeks referrals for me. So that's great. So I've had that accountability. I've worked with a mindset coach for the last 5 years as well. Now I'm a fairly working class boy from North London. If I'd spoke to my friends and said I've got a mindset coach and a business coach, I won't. We can't have enough bleeps on this call to what I would get called. But no offense to any of you watching, listening that are in those genres. I totally value what you do. So I've had those accountability partners, and then over and above that, I saw the value that they brought to me. So I thought, why can't I build a team around me of people that have got complementary service offerings or products that my customers need, and it would be an easy referral. I also love referring people. I find it much easier to go and refer someone than I do to go and close a bit of business out myself, I suppose, because ultimately we don't like talking about ourselves, he says, doing an interview talking about himself. But we don't like doing that. So I've got now people in information security, quality assurance that can do your ISO audits and stuff like that. And these are close people. These are people that are either now friends, or very close business connections that if I give them a client, I don't even have to. We talked about trust earlier on. I don't even have to blink an eye. I know that they'll run with that and go and give that client the service that they need in a similar sort of manner to the way that I would deliver a service as well. Because I think very often people try and shoehorn people in that aren't similar to themselves, maybe personally rather than business, and it falls down very quickly. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'd be remiss of me not to celebrate those because I spend a lot of my time talking to clients about putting those in place. One thing, yeah, I would say it's called Janet, I think. One thing, genuinely, I've worked with Janet, who's a fantastic, I mean, she's more than a VA. I hate titles for people, but she's a very talented legal secretary, certified proofreader, can transcribe, can pick up the phone and call clients, can do a whole host of things. And we both know another lady that works with somebody on a VA side of things to host a big event and whatever. And I think it's those people that hold you to account to those procedures and processes that you've worked with them on. Yes, you're paying them, but ultimately I want them there to hold me to account. So if I start sending things out in the wrong font, size, and whatever else, I want someone to tell me, no, look, continuity equals successful brand. We do it this way. That's a fairly minute example, but so yeah, Janet's been brilliant, and she's worked with me now for probably the 4 or 5 years, I would say now as well. So it shows that when I invest in a partnership or a trusted partner, uh, it is long term. On something a bit more practical, I'm not an early adopter of technology, believe it or not. I'm data privacy, but I'm not. I have to understand tech because I have to be able to build policies and procedures around it for my clients and make sure they're processing data through it in the right way. But no, I mean, I'm still useless at embracing AI, for example, and stuff like that. I like writing. I'm a writer, so the thought of just speaking to a computer and it blurging it all back at me scares me half to death. But I know you've got to adopt those things in your business. And to be fair to AI, I had a really good session with someone the other day that taught me what it can do for the back office in your business, and if it can give us time back, because the one thing we all want more of is time. That's where I think being an adopter of those technologies to help you processes and procedures behind closed doors. So I'm not. I used to be quite closed to those ideas, whereas now I'm a lot more open than I was. Yeah, very much so. And that giving the game away, we don't have. We've got a set day rate, and we've got a sort of set hourly rate. That there's obviously flexibility built into that for the right people, because we do a lot of work for charities, voluntary organisations, um, people that are just starting out in business. And I can remember back those 8 years. I'm sure we all can, to when we were trying to. We wanted a bit of everything. We wanted a shiny logo. We wanted a website. We wanted to go networking. We wanted those accountability partners. But you looked at the bank account and it went like that. So yeah, so I remember those days. So yeah, we sort of now do it client by client actually. So whilst there's an overarching structure that we've got, we do price based on the individual client, the market sector. Each market sector and client has different sets of requirements. They have different complexities with regards to the data they process. They've got different goals of what they want to achieve out of support with us. Some, it could be they want us just to come in and do an annual audit. Some want us to be an outsourced data protection officer and be retained on a monthly basis. So we do have monthly retainer models, and then we have project-based ad hoc pricing as well. So it's a bit of a mix. And then we also have a sort of lower band of retainer as well for those startups, charities, that type of thing as well. And we can also even sell like bundles of what we call DPO, data protection officer hours. And then you've got those for 12 months and you can draw them down as you see fit. And I think by having a flexible pricing model, I think it helps a freelancer. I think if you get too worried about sticking to a price list, I think you let that dominate your brain rather than the value that you're actually building for the client. And I think they can see that when you're talking to them as well. I suppose, yeah, yes. And I suppose there's two. There's one, I should we say, at the prospect stage where they're not yet a client, and then there's one that where you take a client on and then straight away you think, okay. So the latter of the two, and I'll come back to the former, is not paying people. I go back to trust again, and you said about getting paid up front, and that was probably a bit of naivety in my former years when I was building the business. Was I would give people credit that didn't deserve credit. I would let people skip past an invoice date. I don't now. I'm a little bit longer in the tooth now. We obviously have different payment terms, like we have different payment models as well, including like go cardless direct debit mandates, and we get that money in up front. So payment once they're a client, and I'm ruthless with that. Even if it's someone fairly close to me in my network, which I think is actually worse than someone I don't know. Because if they've got to face you up at a networking meeting, for example, and they haven't paid you, I could not walk into a room with you having procured some of your services. But I mean, you'd have got the money up front anyway. But I just how people do it is just it's beyond. But anyway, but that's other opinions are available. And then going back to the former where it's a prospect, it's those ones that I was in sales for 20 years, still am now running a business. It's the hunters that are out for a price. So they're not always completely visible straight away, but I've learned the telltale signs now. It's generally a contact form through the website. It's generally an email, try and get them on the phone. It's hard work, or try and get them on a video call. They've obviously been sent out to get two or three prices. I don't work for people where we might win it. If you want to spend half an hour with me, and I would say we do a free half-hour consultation, and genuinely, I say to people, if I just answer some questions, if you want to just fire like mastermind questions at me for half an hour, and then you want to go away and never speak to me again, I'm happy to invest that half an hour, because I think even if I don't get any business off that person, then they will remember when someone asks them further down the line. And most people are fair, even if they're a bit of a TWAT or something like that. They will remember that, okay, perhaps I took a bit of advantage of that guy's, sort of good nature a while back, but actually he did stay there for half hour. He did answer my question, so I'd recommend him. So I think it's that goes back to what we were talking about earlier on fairness. If I can judge someone being fair, I'll work with them. But if they're not fair, they don't pay you, or I think they're just hunting for a price. Can I chuck another one at you from a networking perspective as well? Right, this true story, brilliant. No, I couldn't script any better because I didn't know what table I was sitting on when I got to this network, and it's not the one that we met each other at. But I was driving towards one of these hotels to go to a network. Absolute, I won't swear, but the guy was attached to the bumper behind, right? So, and I can't be dealing with tailgating or whatever, right? So it's just like attached to the bumper. Didn't know if he was going to come into the car park hotel. Did, right? Both different spaces parked up. Walked in, right? I think he actually went in before me. Going to the same networking event, right? So I still sort of like in my head was like going, oh yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, I won't swear. And then looked at the table plan. Well, well, of course, didn't know it was him because I didn't know his name. But then when we went to sit down, we were there. So he sat directly across from me. So we did our little pitches and whatever. And then he came round to me in the little networking break and said, "Oh, definitely think we should have a one-to-one." And I said, "No, thanks." And he couldn't believe the reason I told him he wasn't having a one-to-one was because do you remember like that car that you were tailgating into the other thing? That was me. You could have killed both of us. So you can go and swivel for a one-to-one as far as I'm concerned. And by the way, try and improve your driving on the way home as well, like that. So yeah, I mean that's more sort of a humorous one that could have had dire consequences. But I think people don't realise that their actions around us are just as important as their interactions with us as well. It's like be polite, be courteous, look after people. We're all here. We all come in, we all go out. It's about what you do in between that makes the difference. Yeah, I think again, I've also experienced, and even fairly recently, if I take the last sort of 3 years, probably I've wised up a little bit on this. Whereas I joked at the beginning about sort of I'll sell anything, bit of Del Boy, that type of thing. Now I do look for those red flags. I do look at realistically how much work can I manage in a month. There's a set amount of days. You want to be able to go to sleep and do things like that if you've got half a chance and all of that as well. So no, I do look at yes, looking after myself a bit more than I used to and the associates around me. But I also do look at sort of I suppose the type of person I want to work with. Is this person for the long term? Is it short term? And there's nothing wrong with it if it's short term, but if it's short term, are they approaching it for the right reason? Are they the amount of times, for example, because I can deliver training, I'll get asked, "Oh, we need training," and I go, "Right, okay, well, let's just have a little bit more of a chat around that." And then what I actually find out is they need an audit. They don't need training because they've actually got they've got very few policies, procedures, processes in place for their data processing. So training them on the poor processes that they've already got, or the ones that could do with a bit of improvement, should we say? I said, I could take your money off you and train you on those, but it comes back to my moral compass where I go, no, look, let's spend this. If that's all you've got for this year's budget, trust me, invest it there, right? You've got me at the drop of a mouse or whatever if you need me to help you with a bit of nurturing around certain topics. And then let's invest the trading budget in year two or in 6 months' time or whatever your scope is. And again, I think by sort of like challenging them on what they think they want, but doing it in a nice, professional, caring way, brings them on the journey with you. And you think, yes, that's the type of client that I want to work with. The ones that kick back and think they know they've got it right when you know they haven't got it right at all. It's like, yeah, do one, thanks very much, go and bother somebody else because they will be a problem in a month's time. Yeah, I'm fortunate without sounding royally from the south of England, and that I should have a moat and crocodiles and a castle and whatever else, because obviously that's what we've all got from the south of England. But if we put that stereotype off to one side for a minute, I'm fortunate that I've got a relatively long back garden, so I was able to build a separate office. No, I'm not going to take claim for building it. I paid other people to do it, but you know what I mean. Build an office at the bottom of the garden, so at least I do have a little walk to work each day. So I do have that, and I think it's not always easy because to work from home if you're in a one bedroom flat, or if you're in a studio apartment, or you share with others, or you've got your partner also working from home, and there's only so many bedrooms and so many rooms where you can set a desk up, and then the kids are coming in from school at whatever. And so I mean I'm either lucky or unlucky in the fact that I'm beautifully single, don't have any children, so I don't have, not that I'm calling them distractions, but obviously they're blessings. But like, from my point, yeah, exactly. From my point of view, I haven't got to worry about that. So I do have that walk to work. So I've got the physical sort of structure around it. I'm very committed to my networking group. So I don't, whilst my other business actually is an online networking business, my networking, as you know, is face to face. So I like going out, and they are in my default diary. They are never moved. I'll say they're never moved if there's a health or something like that. But I structure my holidays around them. I structure client meetings around them. I've never not gone to one because I've got a client meeting. That is the client meeting. I probably got the client from that networking group. So I have this quite clear distinction between house is home, bottom of the garden sounds like a hobbit, but is work. When I leave the property, I'm either putting the bins out and then I know I need to go further and actually have a life, or I'm driving off to see a client face to face. I'm having a one-to-one with someone in a coffee shop. So I do have a mixture of online and in-person one-to-ones. And I've been fortunate enough through actually Karen's network to, in particular, other networks are available, to also build some really good friendships where at least once a month we go and have drinks in the centre of Manchester, for example. So Mr. Steve Edge, who you know very well, Neil Johns, Matt Chandler, people like that. So I've managed to build a little, work friend collective as well to keep me sane, I suppose, if those three people can do that. Yeah, again, I spend a hell of a lot of my time reviewing contracts, whether it's onboarding suppliers, employees, or clients, as we alluded to earlier on. So contracts for me are important, and they're important for a number of different reasons. Not the legal jargon that's contained within, sorry, lawyers, but it's a lot of it is stuff that a lot of us, even people like me that read these things the whole time, don't really understand. But what they do is, I think it shows professionalism. It shows that you're caring for the other part of the relationship, because if it's a decently written contract, so, for example, whenever we onboard a client at CSRB, and it doesn't matter if it's a sole practitioner that's just starting up their business, a voluntary organisation with trustees, or if it's a blue chip with, a global compliance team and whatever else, and you've got to jump through 70,000 hoops to get on their supplier framework and, yawn, Christ, all that type of thing. They all sign a data processing agreement, and they will all get a form of contract. Now, the beauty about contract, especially in the Data Protection Act, is a contract doesn't have to be on parchment paper and laid out, whatever. It can literally be, an email between me and you saying, quote for service, lots of love, Chris. And you go, yeah, I'd love to sign up to that. So I'm not saying we have overly elaborate contracts, but what we do is we make it very clear, concise in English, what they're getting, what the benefits are of signing that contract, with the relevant T's and C's attached to it. I've got full consultancy T's and C's. We have professional indemnity insurance. We've got liability insurance. The insurance world is doing very well out of me. Thank you very much. But I can count on one hand how many times we get asked for copies of insurance, copies of certification, of whatever else. We've got it, so we place a high importance on it. We've spent a lot of money and time in all of it, in my certifications as a data protection officer as well. But yeah, so I see all of those as contracts because they're moral contracts, they're educational contracts, they're due diligence contracts, as well as a contract. But I think if you're going to issue a contract, my final piece on this, you've got to be willing to hold people to the terms of that contract. And that's where sometimes it is hard because generally we're nice human beings until somebody upsets us and then we're not, maybe. I don't know. But it is hard, even if you think you can, no, I'm going to go after this person. It puts a lot of stress on you, it puts a lot of strain. While you're dealing with that, you're not dealing with that over there. And I had one where somebody threatened to take us legal. I mean, we'd done nothing wrong, but I tried to explain that in a whatever. I said, go back and read your contract. And then, eventually I got a half. No, oh, I know he's a very good friend of mine, so I won't say half decent lawyer. I got a very good lawyer just to put a strongly worded letter to them, and it's interesting that they disappeared, never to be heard of ever again. But yeah, so I think in term, yes, I value a lot in contracts. I'm amazed at the amount of people that when they're looking to provide a service or come towards CSRB though, don't have anything in place and then wonder why I question them on it in a slightly nice and sarcastic manner. But I'm just intrigued because is it just because they don't see the value themselves, or is it just because they've decided not to invest in that from a money point of view, or I don't know. It's actually been on our website and part of my mantra for probably the last 5 years is that we do, and I say we in the royal we, but me mainly, but we do go back to school every month. So I will generally invest in some form of CPD orientated training course. Might not be every month, but I might do two in 1 month, then one not in the next. And they will be with trusted training providers that I've got a relationship with. So, for example, we use a provider called Westminster Insights quite a lot, Knowledge Exchange Group. They run some really good data privacy related courses for practitioners and data protection officers. They can be half day, full day courses. They're CPD hours, so I log my CPD hours on online on the CPD portal. So again, I can, if somebody wanted to say, "Do you actually do this?" Yeah, I can waft that in their face if they want that. But the bigger benefit is to clients and also my networking partners. I mean, I'm fortunate enough. I think one of the earlier questions was like, geared around how do you get business? Well, yes, I do a lot of speaking. I do a hell of a lot of speaking. I do podcasts. I do interviews like this. I'm doing my 10-minute member presentation, one in Manchester tomorrow, for example. If there's a seminar, I'll grab that with. I never turn down a speaking opportunity because I like talking, obviously. But I like, but put that aside, it's I can share knowledge, and I can only share knowledge if I've learned it in the first place. So if I'm winging it, it will soon become clear that I'm winging it because not even I'm that good at doing that. So I genuinely enjoy going back to school. I like that. I always see I'm always looking at also yes the commercial side of me and the entrepreneur is going how can I monetize this knowledge that I'm making or learning, um, but also how can I roll this out to my clients and my networking colleagues in a way that is value added, clear, concise, gets through all the mumbo jumbo that you get when it's written by the regulator on their website and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I place a huge, and as probably you do, and it came from watching my mum. Actually, my mum was worked in the accountancy sphere for many years, and I remember when I was at school, I'd come home and she would be sat there with textbooks in the evening doing her ACCA accreditations and exams. So I used to ask her what she was doing and going whatever, and that was bringing two kids up, full-time job, doing that in the evening and working at a petrol garage as a part-time job as well. Uh, and I looked at that and I went, wow, so she wants to learn more and she's got all these other things going on as well. So I always hold my mum, I use my dad in a lot of analogies, but I hold my mum up for inspiration there in getting me into that sort of learning and wanting to learn more the whole time. Yeah, again, probably last 3 years, this came into line for me. I still work with a very good mindset coach, and it was what he taught me, and still be reinforced to this day, is you've got to bring everything into, I mean, the way you'll love this from a marketing perspective, right? But it makes me cringe slightly. But what he says is there's brand Chris, right? Okay, so you've got the work element of that and you've got the personal element. If work conflicts with personal, you're never going to be happy because one side's always got to give something to make the other side successful. So bring your personal goals in line with work. If that means changes to work to get to the personal goals, do that. If it's changes to personal goals to hit the work goals, and do that. So that sounds quite easy when you say it, and it looks nice in lots of diagrams that you show me in books and all this great stuff, and whatever else. And there's always great quotes, isn't there, about how we can get there. But joking aside, we've spent a lot of time, and I talked about my dad earlier on, who ended up committing suicide. These are quite serious topics. I don't joke about them, but what I've done, the reason I highlight them through working with a mindset coach is I spent far too many years, 20 odd years of my working life, with personal conflicting with work, and then couldn't understand why I was never sort of getting self-actualization and all that type of stuff. And it was because I wasn't I wasn't giving myself a chance. So what I do now is I've got a 5-year goal. I'm almost 45, so I'm not saying 50 is the be all and end all, but I'm just, oh no, sorry. But it's like, I've got 5-year goal, and my 5-year goal, to share it at the end here, is I want to look at it and say, right, I want to have a fully online business where I can deliver via this mechanism that we're talking now, for example, but I want to move to New Zealand, right? So I've got that, and now we've got all the bits in place that I need to clear. So I need to clear a lot of personal debt down, right? Being honest, I need to sort a load of stuff out at home, but I need to sort a lot out in the business as well. But we've also built in goals B and C. So if in 5 years' time, if I can't get to New Zealand, where is somewhere similar? Well, the Scottish Highlands I enjoy a lot. That's similar sort of scenery. All right, weather's not quite as good, but at least you're on the same time zone. And then we've got C, and that's Stockport. So if you can't, you've got to set realistic goals. Just to finish on a bit of a laugh there. Sorry, but it's, no offense to anyone that lives in Stockport. I'm just other Manchester suburbs are available, that type of thing. But it's not. No, I think they would admit it's not the Highlands and it's not New Zealand. But there we are. But rounding that off. Sorry, is I think bring the two together, and get advice on that. A self-help book might help you, but very often you need to speak to people. So when I did look to make the transition into freelancing away from the paid job, even though the boss was a bit of what I did do was I went and spoke to people that were already running their business, got that level of experience off of them. So that was a bit of a confidence injection in the arm to make the big leap. But it was also, they gave me practical advice, like try and get this amount in the pot before you start. Don't try and run at everything from the word go, but do have a bit of a vision of where you want to be. I mean, I completely ignored that because I just sold anything that I could get my hands on. But hey ho, 2 out of 3 is not bad, is it?